This is my good friend, Brian Kramer. We're talking Germain Toyota. That's why there's a Supra behind me on the screen. Germain Toyota, Naples, Florida. And these guys are selling in excess of 500 units a month. You heard me, 500 units a month. And now we're talking about during COVID, we're talking about a retirement community, we're talking about a fishing village, we're talking about Naples, Florida, on the Gulf Coast of Florida. I'm telling you, half the people that live there are snowbirds. They only live there in the summertime. They buy their cars back where they came from. And when you can sell 500 units a month, now I got to tell you, about a year ago, I started hearing that this dealer in Naples, Florida was recruiting some of the top talent in the country. And I said, wait a second, I know some of these guys that they're bringing in. They're friends of mine. And they are really superstar managers and salespeople. You know, what's going on in Naples, Florida, Germain Toyota? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. What's going on at Germain is my friend here, Brian Kramer. Hi, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. 500 units a month. Now, is that bull crap or real numbers?
Those are real numbers. The craziest thing is the fresh traffic, we've only got 8 people on the floor, selling cars. So I saw something.
Wait a minute. Wait. 500 units generated by 8 people?
Well, that's how many are on the floor. A year ago, it was 4 times that. But we're doing it with 36 people.
Okay.
So we've got an amazing team.
That's phenomenal. 36 people. So I get that a lot of it is appointment driven.
85% of it.
Now, I've been involved in a lot of dealerships that did huge numbers, and I'm familiar with high volume dealerships. A lot of people can't envision that. And, if you're in New York City, yeah, you could sell 500 Toyotas, 500 Hondas. I mean, you could sell 500 cars with a population of 10 million people. But when you're in Naples, Florida, and most of your customers are not first-time buyers, they're last-time buyers. You got a senior communities, snowbirds. These people live up north and vacation and have a second residence in your town. You're a fishing village. I mean, the demographic says 500 units is absurd. Now,
we get a lot of help from our Nissan, Honda partners here in town. So I think they go easy on us.
Are they selling 500 units there? Are they 500 unit capacity?
No, they're allowing us to get a little.
Okay, so
I would say so. I think anybody is if you look at it the right way.
I'll tell you right now.
It's a matter of how you get there.
With technology and the tools we have today, I could take any rural dealership. I'm talking about Mayberry dealership, come in under the radar screen and steal the competition's business out of the major population centers. So enough about what I know. Let me ask you, how did you do it? What tools are you using? What technology are you using? How much of it depends on superstar managers? How much of it is just floor traffic? Talk to me.
So I would like to take the credit for it, but obviously, just like anybody else would say, that it's just not true. So I've got what I would consider, obviously I'm biased, but I put my management team up against anybody in the country. And I say that humbly, but I am surrounded by some rock star managers across the board. We're lucky enough to have Wendell Hardy, who Jared Kilway, who
I know Jerry.
Right? And so he's a digital rock star. Mm-hmm. And he tees it up. They're all phenomenal partners.
You just brought Mike Allen aboard, didn't you?
Mike Allen's on board. We've got
F&I genius.
Right. And the list goes on with all people and none of them are from here, right? So they've all, like you said, they relocated and set up shop, and we got 300,000 population, and we're just making the most of it.
Who in the world wouldn't want to relocate to Naples, Florida. Come on, beautiful, beautiful community. I envy you. Let me ask you, technology. What tools are you using?
So we're using Vin Solutions as a CRM. We're using CDK. We're using Prodigy as our digital retail tool online and in the showroom. So they're using iPads, and then we're using Darwin for our F&I.
When the iPads, tell me about iPads.
So maybe 2-3 years ago, SET came to us and said that they were thinking about a few different vendors, because AutoFi's got some strong products, so does Roadster. And we decided that we were going to take the tough route and go with Prodigy because it's a lot harder. It's a whole culture shift, but if anything, I think it takes the old school, melds it with the new school because it gives you 100% accurate traffic count. Once it's embraced, everything has accurate data. Everything is just like we've always done with a paper log. You just have it on an iPad, and there's no margin of error.
So I put me in the other position. Okay, so you're using Prodigy. You're using.
So I think it gives us a real. Sorry to cut you off. A real strong what's in the showroom at all times, and it's like the big old paper log. You can see it at all times. Who's on a test drive? Who's with this person? And it's real decentralized. And it's not the manager that has to write everything down. They're putting everything into the system. So all you've got to do is inspect, manage it like an air traffic control tower.
What I've always taught managers is you have to have what I call hyper awareness. You have to be aware of every deal in progress, everything that's moving and shaking on the showroom floor, everything that's moving, shaking on the lot. You got to know. And what about demo drives? Are we doing demo drives today?
So we're doing demo drives, and it's optional. I will say that. So if a customer doesn't feel comfortable, we're not riding along with them. But the one thing that we found as we started using these iPads now 3 years in is the thing that generates the biggest impact on closing is the selection and selecting the right vehicle correctly the first time. So slowing down on the needs analysis, asking the right questions. If we land on the right vehicle the first time, we close it over 60%.
The right vehicle. So many people today are qualifying the customer based on what's your budget, how much do you want to pay? I mean, instead of what are your needs, where do you work, what do you do there, how long you've been there, where'd you buy your last car, where'd you finance your last car? Those are the questions I want my representatives to know the answer to. Where'd you buy your last car? Where'd you finance your last car? Where do you work? What do you do there? How long have you been there?
Right, because people want to have some sort of connection, and if you don't know how they're going to use the vehicle, you don't know which vehicle to select them on. And if it used to happen that we would take the bait, coming in on the $199 lease special, and we'd show them that vehicle, but that wasn't the right vehicle for them. So that's what ended up taking 3-4 hours because we wouldn't pump the brakes and make sure and validate that was the right vehicle for them. Now we do. We don't do it 100% of the time, but when we do it the right way, it's 60% or higher. And if it takes 2 or 3 times or more, it's no different than if you have to present 5 pencils. The PVR is going down, the closing ratio is going down, the CSI is going down, and nothing good happens.
Well, let me ask you this. What advertising mediums are you using? How are you bringing these people in? That's probably what more people see. Car sales today is not as much about selling as it is about marketing. How are you bringing them in?
So we do a little bit of television. We spend a lot of money on Facebook. We've kind of cut ties with the third parties. We took that. Okay,
wait a minute. You're not using a lot of the lead providers?
We are not.
Okay, so the lead providers are not really a major part of your marketing scheme. It's more Facebook. It's more television.
Yes, and Google, obviously.
I am a television fan. A lot of people still have gone away from and of course newspaper's only effective if you're training a puppy. But I don't want to use newspaper, but when I get into radio and television, they've got their place. I mean, that wouldn't be the major part, but we have a dealership here, Beaver Toyota, if you're familiar with them. Out in Cumming, Georgia, and Beaver Toyota dominates early afternoon. You familiar with them?
Oh yeah.
Linda Beaver does great television commercials. I see her on Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy shows we watch every day. Afternoon crowd, just before people can come in and buy the car. She really does a great job, and they do a great job of marketing. So, yeah, television's good. So, tell me about your Facebook. What are you doing with Facebook, Brian?
So I'd like to take the credit for that, but I'd have to defer to Jared Kilway because I don't know exactly what he does with it. I just tell him, hey, if I take all this money from radio and I give it to you in Facebook, what's that going to generate? And he does the math for me, and it seems too good to be true, and he always delivers that or more.
Kilway's a friggin' genius. You need to give him a raise.
That's what he keeps telling me. But he does some stuff that I've never, the results that he's generating, and a lot of it is him, and he's trying stuff that's outside the box, and a lot of it's service marketing, so generating a lot more service traffic so that the service drive process gets executed, because that's another place we've got amazing people on the team, is on the service drive. So that they already know us, they like us. And are you
using a program on the service drive to sell customers cars?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I wouldn't say we're using a program. We've got a team of 12 people out there with a sales manager dedicated to that. But we used, the Dominion solution. We had auto alert. We've used a lot of different software programs, but I found the best is nothing.
Okay, so you're not using auto alert, auto mastermind, or any of those?
No. And what I found is that people were looking at the equity position and they were trying to determine who the buyers were versus just getting out and just saying hello to them and asking them if we can buy their car. And that's
I saw a program the other day that just identifies that there's a customer on the service drive with equity. I mean, just then let the sales department make a decision. There's so many programs. I can't keep up with them.
I'm on a mission to try to take away technology and clean the clutter, because it's an overwhelming for the associates, for me, the expense of it. But Wendell and I talk about it all the time, like Occam's razor. Just the simplest solution is always the best solution. And the best solution is, rather than trying to architect the whole deal and figure out where they're at, is just ask them, if we paid you more than your car is worth, would you sell it to us? And it's either yes or no. And those are the cars that we need. We need them on our used car lot. They turn quick. They're well maintained. We know the whole service history of it. And what we find is half the people don't end up buying the car that they pulled up in. So
that's absolutely true. People don't buy the car they talked about. Don't worry about what you do on the internet. When I was a salesman, back when we were selling Conestoga wagons, when I was a salesman, it was amazing. The manager, I got him on the phone. I get him in. Well, what would I get them in? I mean, how many times?
Not your week.
How many times you hear I get them in? If they leave, ride with them.
I heard that plenty of times. I was terrified of it. And that's why when you asked me to test driving cars, it's still like nails on a chalkboard, because it's against everything in my DNA not to ride along on a test drive.
Well, that's what scares me today, because I have taught for 30 years. When they drive the car, they go from their logical mind to their emotional mind. That's when the customer goes to the emotional part of the sale. They get out of their logical mind. And now we've eliminated the test drive in so many cities. By law, you can't even do it. You go up north and New York, whatever, you can't go on a ride with a customer. It's against the law. So some of these dealerships are having to deal with that. So the presentation of the vehicle, and as you mentioned, the selection of the vehicle is now more important than ever. Would you agree?
It's critical, if not the most important. I mean, as I looked at it, when I'm looking at these metrics I've never looked at, and I was always, hardcore adamant about test drive. But when I'm looking at everything, the thing that drives performance the most is the selection, and making sure you select the right vehicle the first time. So if you did anything, you spend the most time on that. And it's not what I would have thought. But there's some salespeople that close at 60%. We've got some that close at 30%. And some locate more vehicles, or some sell from stock more. Some, it takes them 2 or 3 because they're going so fast, because they're going right to the ad car. Or I've got ad cars online, but we stopped advertising price in March on TV.
That's the other thing. Germain Toyota, 500 units a month, does not advertise price or payments. True?
True.
So it's all about experience. You're advertising the experience. You're advertising the reputation.
Fast, simple, easy.
You've been in business since Warren Germain started the company in 1947, which is 73 years ago. I know because that's my year I was born.
He was Henry Ford's personal accountant.
I know that. That was Columbus, Ohio?
Yep.
Fantastic. That's where you started 26 years ago.
Yes, sir, at an Oldsmobile store.
Oldsmobile, Oh, God, history. Okay, your theme is, and I know your theme, you're 500 units a month. What you advertise is fast, simple, easy.
That's right.
Is that about right?
And it's easier said than done. I thought it would be easy to advertise, but what happens now is they hold us up to a higher standard that we have to live up to. So it's a blessing and a curse, because when you advertise that, obviously they're expecting you to do it.
Fast, simple, easy. And I also know that you overpay your people. That's another thing that I've done a little research on. I've always said hire the best people and pay them too much, and that's what seems to be what you're doing.
And we do that, and we have what I think are the best. I know it, and because they continue to exceed everything that everybody says they can do month in and month out. Well, sometimes we're waiting for the last 10 days. But
you sent your people to my internet battle plan event when I was in Clearwater, and I had some of your internet and technical people in my audience. And once again, dealers that don't invest in training get what they deserve. I mean, I know you put the money out you paid for. You put people, you develop your people.
100%, and you have to, out of respect, train your people. If you don't grow them, somebody else will, and it's kind of an obligation that you have. And what I've found over the years, in 25 years or whatever, is the more you train on them, the less you have to advertise. Or if you advertise, it's just to grow the business. It's not because you have to, and you're at the mercy of the market. It's more strategic. But I don't even. They come up with all the ideas now because I surround myself with great people. And I ask them what they want to do, and their ideas are better than mine.
Zig Ziegler, and I'm no relation to Zig Ziegler, but he and I were friends. I knew him in the Speakers Association. I had lunch with him a number of times, and we spell it. He used to say I spell my name wrong because it was spelled differently than his. But Zig Ziegler said the worst thing than training your people and having them leave is not training them and having them stay.
That's true.
And that is absolutely great advice for everybody. So now tell me about your BDC, your business development. Do you have a dedicated department? How's that work?
We don't have one. We
BDC, okay.
We just go cradle to grave because we're trying to take all the, just like technology, just like the amount of vendors that we deal with. We're trying to declutter that aspect and less touches for the customer to interact with. So yeah, the sales people take it coast to coast.
Fantastic. Tell me about that. So they take the incoming phone calls. They take the incoming leads.
The incoming chats. The whole deal.
So basically, every salesperson. And you said you had how many?
36. 36.
So 36 people, all are capable of taking leads. They're all capable of taking chat.
Yes.
Now, see, that's a different concept than so many dealerships are doing.
It's very uncomfortable, and it was not easy. And when we were trying to, COVID obviously was the tipping point of it. And I think that everybody always knew that we should be doing that. But we used to have 10 people standing out front on the point waiting for an up. And I remember saying there's 80% of the leads coming through the BDC, 20% out there, and our 80% of our staff is out there to handle 20% of the customers. And we just needed to, at the end of the day, when I look back in retrospect, and it's the issue with most things, is we didn't provide enough clarity as to why they needed to do it, because a lot of those same people are here today and they choose to be back in the old BDC, which is where the salespeople are. And you're also talking about a wide spectrum from millennials to boomers and everybody in between. There's no generational thing. It's just a work ethic and a commitment thing.
Fantastic. Now, you're generating the leads, and what scripting do you teach your salespeople? Who's training that part of it?
We use a company called Quantum, which is owned by Dave O'Brien. And Dave O'Brien out of Scottsdale has made a major impact. So he's working with them, and we were trying to find a outside the box solution, because in this digital deal, we've lost the human connection, because it's so transactional, and it's so just, here's the payment, back into it, I'll tell you what cars work. And what we found is that doesn't work. And the customers still have to think about it, because it's just a logic, and logic, as you just said, doesn't sell cars. It doesn't get, emotion is still what runs this business. And and Quantum's a real unique boutique training deal, but it's really also just, it's kind of the way we did it back in the 90s. It's all about rapport, building relationships, asking questions the right way, and figuring out what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, as I'm talking this through, it's actually just crazy simple, so simple that it works.
I just wrote an entire dissertation on closing a deal, because people today think closing is the hammer at the end of the sale instead of the rapport at the beginning of the sale. If you suck in real life, you will suck in closing. And so many people don't get it.
And we always say the best closers are the best openers.
Got it. I love that, and I will probably put that in my speeches in the future. Just closing a deal is such a series of ingredients and stages, and I can close a deal. I've got all the word scripts. I'm a trainer. I do that, but people have got to understand it's personality, it's finesse, it's conversation, not memorization. People don't get that.
And making a connection. And actually, as you said, the company Quantum that we're working with, they teach our people how to think instead of word tracks. They teach them the decision tree of, when you interact with this type of person, what kind of questions should you be asking, and really slowing down so that it's more personalized. And I think that's where everything's going with digital, because you get, as you know, if you get somebody who can close, if you get somebody who can connect, it doesn't matter what the technology is. It doesn't matter what the software solution is, because it still takes a human being to do that. There's no artificial intelligence that's going to be able to do that.
No, I don't ever see that. And I said the other day, people are looking for that total transaction on the internet, what they think Carvana does. And Carvana doesn't do what people think they do. I mean, oftentimes it's not, they don't even have the car you're on. They got to go looking for it after you buy it.
We just experienced that with one of our customers. We had a customer, and we're advertising simple, fast, easy. The customer goes all the way through, which we hadn't experienced before, coast to coast. They come in to pick up the car curbside, and to be honest with you, we weren't ready for it.
Did you drop the ball?
We totally dropped the ball, and we hadn't made it that far yet, and it was dropped on multiple levels, but which we've since gone through and fixed. But it was a big learning experience. And the customer had it on one VIN number and the other, and that was sold. So we had an identical vehicle. The customer flipped out and they left, and we couldn't figure out what the big deal was, because it was the same MSRP, same price, but they had gone so far as to bind insurance on that vehicle before they arrived.
They already told the insurance company the VIN number and everything, right?
Oh yeah, and they didn't. And they said to us, they go, we didn't even, which we keep now. We're seeing it more and more. We didn't ask you for anything off on the price. We just wanted it to be simple, and we didn't execute at that time. But then they bought a car from Carvana in our parking lot and told us about it. But then Carvana did the exact same thing, because their website wasn't real time to update it. So they said, they told me to go to one of the Carvana vending machines, and it was the salesperson is the reason why they came back. And they said, if everybody's got the same technology, we'd rather buy from Mitchell because he gave us an unbelievable experience, and we actually felt bad that he wasn't going to get credit for the deal.
That makes a lot of sense. You know, I'm hearing all these stories about Carvana. Now, what you got to remember is Carvana and Vroom together are not 1% of the retail market. You know, they're big dollars, but they're not 1% of sales. So what I'm looking at right now is we can duplicate everything they do. How much outside the dealership delivery are you doing?
So it depends by the month. We were doing a lot more back in April and May, but I was just doing this math in it the other day, and it's between 25 and 30%.
Between 25 and 30% of your customers in a 500 unit a month store. We're talking, if you just tuned in, we're talking Germain Toyota. We're talking Naples, Florida. 500 units a month. Wow. So anyway, about 25, 30% of your deals are delivery at their residence or at their place of work. And me personally, I've had a lot of doctor visits this year. I like to fill out the paperwork for the doctor online. I don't like to fill out the paperwork, you know, when I'm sitting in the doctor's waiting room, but I still want to see the real doctor. You know.
And it's like we always say here, you know, with I'm a big fan of Disney, and I talk about them a lot on some of these on the webcasts. And I was saying this the other day, Disney's not going to change Pirates of the Caribbean. They're going to change the way you wait in line for it. That attraction is not going to change, no differently than buying a car. This business, people love it. There's an emotional connection for people within the business and outside the business. And just like in Disney parks, you can't go change that a ride and make it all virtual and holograms. And, you know, there might be some enhancements you can do to it. But really, the problem that everybody has with those rides, and they went through a transformation on it, is they didn't want to wait in line for an hour. If they're going to be there, they want to be able to go to different shops. So once they figured out how to use magic bands and use technology to make that better, they found that their other concession sales went up and their retail sales, because they could wander through the shops, and it was a win-win because they're spending more money and the guests are happier. And that's really what we need to do in this business to compete with Carvana and to beat them at their own game with the new car franchises.
Well, you know, we've got service. They don't have service.
Right.
You know, yeah, think about it. I mean, we have such an advantage, and the customers, if they like us, and we build trust, we build rapport, we've got service, we actually have the vehicle we advertised, you know, most of the time.
Yes.
I don't see why we couldn't do more of what I call concierge sales.
Once we started embracing it, and it's been a real bumpy start, and and you bring up a good point, because within a concierge sale, there's kind of a couple different elements of it. There's the presentation, which we do some presentations at the house, at the work, or here. And that's one element of it. Then there's the, obtaining the paperwork element of it and getting all the docs and the non-fun stuff once we've come to terms on the numbers. And what we find is after let's say they came here and they visited, we get a lot of people, you know, as the managers are back in that BDC with the salespeople. We don't have BDC reps, but they're back. There's a sales manager back there at all times, if not two. And as they're calling these customers, trying to figure out how we can wrap these deals up, we offer to, what if we can send the paperwork to you? What if we can do it virtually? What if we can send the salesperson over there with the iPad?
You just said something I want to get a clarification. How much of the paperwork is being signed on the internet?
So it depends on what part of the paperwork, but in the showroom here, well, if they live in the state of Florida, 100% of it.
100% of the paperwork is
digital, so there's no paper.
In Florida, you can deliver a car 100% digital, no paper. They can sign it all online.
So you can do it in all but 10 states. And the interesting thing is that everybody kept telling me you couldn't do it until I called the Florida Department of Motor Vehicles in Tallahassee back in March to find out that it wasn't them. It was the EFS system to transmit digitally, which nobody had come out with yet. And as I'm talking to them, I started talking to CDK. They built a conduit, and then they came out with eSign 2.2 and then Sign Anywhere in May.
Wait a minute. CDK developed the technology to communicate with the Department of Transportation and make online signing of the paperwork possible.
Yes. Not only them, Route 1, Dealer Track. If you look on Dealer Track's website on Tag and Title, and it's one of the biggest fallacies happening right now because everybody keeps saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's only, New York, Utah, Washington, Oregon. There's not that, Idaho, a few states that don't do electronic tag, electronic title, electronic trade, and then e-signing. So the electronic signatures, it's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. There's some Maine up in the Northeast, but the Mississippi, but the majority of the states actually can, but nobody's really aware of it. And I went through when all this was going on, sort of calling the DMVs, and they said, no, we can do it, but you got to do this and this and this. So once you get it set up, it's
okay. CDK has it. Dealer Track has it.
Dealer Track has it. Route 1 has it.
Route 1's got it.
Dealer DMV, which handles tag and title in Georgia and Florida, and it's kind of like Title Tech or T21. They can do it anywhere, like DMV nationwide.
What a great idea! I mean, you guys are selling 500 units a month. You can sell a car completely paperless, where the people are already signed up when they come in to pick up the car.
When I get off this call, we just did a street purchase on a Snowbird that's not coming back down this year with a 20,000 mile 2013 Camry. And they said, can you buy it? So we picked it up. And instead of having to FedEx everything, FedEx it back, hope it's okay, we're going to do it.
You went up to New Jersey and picked up a trade?
Well, no, they live up there, but the
trade was here.
But the trade's a mile down the road, but they're not coming down. So we can do everything digitally. And they can do it from their computer, their iPad in their living room.
Fantastic. I've been involved.
It's fast and
I've been involved with a number of dealerships that did the big numbers, and the road to the sale didn't die. We just put technology into the road to the sale. So many of the new age prophets of no profit, the prophets of no profit. They're predicting, well, the road to the sale is dead. The road to the sale is not dead. We still need a process, but we've put technology into the process, and the steps are different. What would you say are the steps to your sale?
Same as they've always been: needs analysis, selection, test drive, trade appraisal, menu presentation, first pencil, second pencil. On the second pencil, we pull credit, and then we TO if it's not closed, delivery, and that's it.
Fantastic. Who's doing the TOs?
So early on, the EMIs, the F&Is doing the early manager intros. And after the first pencil, if they don't have a commitment on money down and term, then a finance manager goes in. And if that doesn't get closed by the second pencil, then there's another sales manager. So we all work in conjunction as a team. And, or depending on how busy it is, like Black Friday, we'll use senior salespeople to laterally TO some of the junior salespeople.
Are they paid for that, or are they paid for that, or is that just a?
So that's a good question. It depends on how busy they are. If they close it, it could be a split, but most of the time it's more of an audition for F&I, just to see what because as we get rid of all this administrative stuff that drives you and I crazy, and always has. My goal is to get rid of all the admin stuff so that all the F&I managers are doing is shaking hands. They're a concierge of the showroom, and they're out there delighting guests. That's a different skill set than somebody that can do a lot of paperwork. So the more we can keep F&I managers freed up with this automation and this digital electronic stuff, so they don't have to do paperwork, the more guests they can delight, the more TOs they can do.
I love that, because that is a concept that I've been doing for 20 years. In states like Michigan, where salespeople are more A to Z. What we did was we had the F&I manager, the finance director, finance manager, go out to the consumer and present the menu. And the consumer signed off they would buy this, they would buy that, they won't buy that, whatever. They'd formulate the deal, and then we turn it to a clerical employee that delivered it. Somebody that would ordinarily, a minimal wage employee that does clerical work. Usually female intensive, but usually it was amazing because we freed up their time to get on to another deal.
Correct. And let's just face it, I don't know about you. I was not good at paperwork. It wasn't my strong suit when I was in F&I. It was far from it. So now you have a computer that can automate.
I set world records in F&I, and I'm not good at paperwork. I hated it.
Right. And I know what my strengths are and my weak and what I'm not strong at, and that's right at the top of the list. But now that we have, you can think through it strategically, and thank goodness my management team keeps me freed up to work with Jared and get all that stuff straightened out. Because if it wasn't for them, none of it would be possible.
Fantastic. This is great. I was involved with Prestige Ford in Dallas. We're going back to the 90s and the early 2000s. We went from 600 units to 1,000 a month in and month out. We had a month where we did 1,700, and it actually beat Galpin and Cal. We're number one Ford in the country. We had 75 new car salespeople at the time. I mean, it wasn't 30 and 40 unit salespeople, because the technology didn't exist to support that. We were looking at 75, 15 car guys, 10 car guys, or women.
Right. You got to fill everything out with a pen. And I remember that, write the VIN number on 7 different pieces of paper.
Oh, I'm sitting at a desk with 5 managers side by side, and we got a line of salespeople in front of us, and we're desking deals. And it was like, as soon as one salesman left, here's another one in front of you. And then you desk his deal, her deal, and here comes another salesman. What did I tell you to say to the coffee? Let me try to remember so you're being a desk manager in that high volume of store, you have to do what I call Zen math.
What's that?
You get into a Zen state of mind. I mean, because you get so many deals working at the same time.
It's like being an air traffic controller at O'Hare Airport.
And if you never worked a high volume desk, which you obviously have, you have no idea what it's like.
Or the adrenaline rush that comes with it.
Oh, if you eat lunch, your hamburger while you're desking with your other hand,
right.
You wear out those green Sharpies. Oh man. So tell me some more about the secret sauce. What does Germain do that dealers across the country would love to do and like I say, if you're listening to this broadcast and you're not doing 500 units a month, I don't care if you're in a town of 2,000 people, I can get you to 500 units a month. It's available for you. What's the secret sauce? Brian Kramer, General Manager, Germain Toyota, Naples, Florida. Tell me the secret sauce. What are you doing?
Surround yourself with the best people. At least that's the secret for us. I mean, there's a lot of little things like you just said one of them. We don't try to have 5 people at the desk anymore, because we sat there and we said to ourselves, okay, one person, and with all those deals, we have one person at the desk at all times. One
desk manager. So that's my other theory. Now I'm hearing a lot of this. It's kind of cool. My theory has always been managers are like sharks. They never stop swimming. They are constantly in motion. They're hyper aware of their business. They are aware of every deal in progress as that deal is happening. They touch the customer often. They touch the customer early. That's always been my theory of management when I was in your position. So tell me about that.
So one of the things that drives me crazy is, you got a bunch of different people. One person will come up, they're working to deal with this manager, and then they come up, they don't have the patience, so they ask this manager a question, but he doesn't know the whole story. So then he gives them an answer based on the data that he's being fed. And it's kind of like being up in a booth at offensive coordinator. You're watching everything, but you're not seeing everything because you've got a lot of different stuff going on. And if they don't communicate with you clearly, like in a tower for NASCAR, as you're looking down on the crew, they say forward, left. There has to be that trust, and you have to be overly clear. So there's only one person in a NASCAR race that's saying that. There's not 3. So that way somebody doesn't get in one accident. So if everybody's back there, they're going to, maybe I call it slitting cocoons. They'll slit the cocoon and try to help the person out And really what needs to happen is everybody needs to come up to the sales tower with their stuff, and it needs to be more like a 911 call. You state your name, you state your need, you state the objection. What does it need? What's the commitment? And then let's roll. And it doesn't need to be some long story that should have happened during the rapport phase, right? Because now the bullets are flying. We need to know exactly what's going on. It's a 2-minute drill, quick, hurry up offense. And the other two, if they're not there, the salespeople will step up. They will elevate their game. They will come with their stuff because they know if not, somebody else that has all that stuff is going to get ahead of them. Then you can free up somebody to be calling customers back, confirming appointments, calling the no-shows, which is absolutely critical, especially in the world we live in now with the amount of appointments.
Managers have to verify the appointments.
100%. I mean, that's a DNA culture piece, and that's a non-negotiable that will get you kicked off the bus on our team.
Well, yeah, because one thing I know, and you just said it in a different way than I would say it, salespeople will shop for the manager and get a second opinion on how they want to do it.
Yeah, and it's no different than trying to get a different opinion from a different doctor. Eventually, if you say what you are looking for in a certain way, you'll find what you're looking for. But it also, it deteriorates trust when you put salespeople in a situation where they don't have to give somebody the whole answer. When that's their person and they know no matter what, when they get back on that Ferris wheel, they're going to see that manager again. There's going to be a tighter bond, and they're going to be more direct, and they're going to be more honest about what's going on with the deal. Because
well, let me ask you a question. Now, you're doing volume. Are you making any money?
Yes, we had our best month ever last month.
Okay, so you're profitable. You're not just blowing units out at a very low profitability.
No, the management team, not me, but I mean that's in all the Germain stores. It's that's a sense of pride, but we're not, and I don't mean this. There's customers on here, but we're not trying to be the best price, and we're not ever good. That's not us. And we're not trying to be the everyday low prices. That's Walmart, a mile down the road. And I'm not saying that we're not going to be competitive, but we're going to be the fastest, simplest, and easiest car dealership.
Fast, simple, easy. I've seen that in all your ads.
And that's who we are.
Easy.
And it's not cheap to do that. And you can't do that without having good people.
Well, you got Wendell Hardy. You got Jared Kilway. You got Mike Allen. I mean, those are
Hockey Nicholas, Ryan Weeden, Ben Pettit, Josh. I mean, it's Rafal Maziar's. It's a stud crew.
I know most of those people. So surround yourself with the best people and pay them too much. It's what I've said that for 35 years. So I'm amazed.
And they know they can count on each other. There's a huge sense of trust. It's a unified front. Nobody is. They don't have to worry about somebody knifing them in the back, and it's they just work together as a cohesive unit.
Fantastic! I am so pleased we've had this. The secret sauce is not really the secret sauce. What is amazing is everything you're doing is what a lot of people say they are doing. Now in the car business, we don't have a knowing problem. We have a doing problem. And I've said that for my entire career. People tell me, well, Mr. Ziegler, we do this. And when I was a top manager in some big high volume dealerships, I've been where you are. And my managers have come up to me and say, well, Mr. Ziegler, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I say, when? We just have a doing problem. We have a when problem. We don't have a what problem. We have a when problem. People tell me, I'm going to do this. Well, when are you going to do it?
I'll tell you a big part of what got in my way with that, besides not having the right people, is not saying no to a lot of good ideas so you can say yes to a few great ideas. And I've got a ton of people blowing up my phone on a daily basis about try this software. We're going to let you try this for free. We want your store to pilot this. And I say no respectfully. And a lot of them are hard to say no to. And they say, how could you say no to something for free? We're going to do it and we're going to give it to you. And I said, because my focus and my attention span is not a strength either. So I need to make sure that my focus is narrow And by putting too many things on my plate, then you spread yourself too thin. You can't see these things through to completion. And it takes a lot of stomach to overcome all the resistance to change that's just natural. And if you don't commit to just one thing and say no to everything else, it's not going to happen.
I love it. I was in North Carolina, Hendersonville, North Carolina. I was at a Chevy store, big Chevy store for that market. And one of the sales managers came up to me and said, "Mr. Ziegler, I just came from the biggest Ford store in the South. Let me show you the way we work deals at this dealership." And he showed me a pencil technique. And I said, "That is absolutely phenomenal. I really like what you just showed me." He said, "I thought you would." I said, "Now you realize we're not going to do that here." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "These people have paid me hundreds of thousands of dollars to install processes, and you're not going to come in here and confuse everybody changing the process. If we go to that pencil, it'll be a unanimous decision by management, and we will train it and we will adapt into it and make it part of our culture, but you're not just going to come in here and start doing that."
Sounds like a conversation I had with Mike Maroney back in the day about inbound phone calls. He said, "I love that idea. That's a phenomenal way to handle that." I said, "So can we do it?" He goes, "Absolutely not."
I visited with Marshall. Did you know Marshall Chesron by any chance?
Yeah, he was up in Columbus, Ohio, right?
Yeah. Well, he was out of Denver.
Okay.
See, I consulted the Chesron stores before AutoNation bought them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and when I was giving AutoNation a fit, when I said all the used car departments are going to be big outdoor skateboard emporiums, Maroney asked me to please fly down into Deerfield and meet with them in South Florida. And Chesron was one of the guys I met with. He said, "Ziegler, how you doing? When we get off the air, let me ask you, I'll tell you about that conversation."
Please.
You'll get a kick out of that conversation because Chesron was a good friend of mine. And, oh, golly. So you come from process driven, and I am process driven. So many people out there that are listening to this broadcast, watching this today, are not process driven. They don't understand. I didn't make the bones I made in this industry because I'm smarter than other people.
We made more mistakes
because I did what I said I did. If we put in a process, we're going to do that process. Half the dealers out there are teaching a meet and greet that your people don't even do. I mean, if they're not going to say welcome to the customer exactly the way you want it said, they're not doing the complicated things.
And to that point, I was using Next Up, which I think is a great software tool, and I think it's fantastic. But my team wasn't bought into it. And I said, and just like with any vendor, if we're not utilizing it 85%, and that's how we ended up parting ways with Auto Alert. It's not that software is not great, because I think it is. But unless they're going to execute it at that level, we're not going to have it. And we can't do everything, and you can't be great at everything. So you got to say no to a few things. It's like Apple, they say no to a lot of things. Samsung makes washers, dryers, dishwashers, refrigerators, phones, tablets, Galaxy this, and 47 different phones. And Apple crushes them from a market cap standpoint. And you can put every product that Apple makes on a conference room table, and their market cap is higher than Exxon or any major oil company because of them keeping it simple and keeping a narrow focus. And that's what we try to do here. And it's hard to say no to a lot of the shiny objects and good ideas.
Now, 500 units a month. How long has that been going
on? Since May. I mean, it was, obviously we took a dip after COVID, but really it started. The first time it happened was August of 19. And it just comes down to finding enough of the right people, because we absolutely, we pour more kerosene on the fire, we'll sell 600 cars.
No, when I was with Potamkin Cadillac, and I was a manager with Potamkin Cadillac in the 80s, we were selling 500 new and used Cadillacs on a 3-acre lot. Now, there's not a 500 unit Cadillac dealership in the world right now.
Or has been for a minute. So that's probably that's turning your inventory 4 times a month, probably.
I mean, but it was amazing. When we were hitting those numbers, nobody in Atlanta was doing numbers like that. I mean, there wasn't a competitor dealer. Well, I take it back. Bill Hurd Chevrolet was doing numbers similar, but nobody else was. And the people were in disbelief, and they didn't know that we could sustain it. Do you believe you can sustain 500 units a month into the future?
That's a great question. I think that I think it's just the beginning. And I say that humbly, not because of me, it's because the staff wants it. And last month they averaged, over 16 average sales per salesperson. And this month it's going to be more than that. It's probably going to be in the 17s average, which I've never, in the numbers you're talking about. I remember in the 90s reading Dealer Magazine and the stuff you were talking about, and I thought it was crazy, and I'm like, these numbers, that can't be real, because I was skeptical, because I was in a smaller market and it just seemed absurd, the stuff you were talking about. But now I see it, and more importantly, the team that I'm working with sees it, and they know exactly what needs to be done, so they know how to scale it. It's just a matter of finding enough of the right people, which we find is the hardest thing to do, is that who's a culture fit. And culture for us is everything. Culture trumps ability. You can't train culture.
No, you can't.
When they're down, like Black Friday, they're going to crush it just because I know what they're about.
When I mentioned Prestige Ford in Dallas, the late 90s, early 2000s, we were doing 1,000 units month in and month out. And we had 75 new car salesmen, but we also had 5 salespersons. We had women. And that was the beginning when women were getting into the industry a lot. And we had five teams, 15 salespeople to a team, and each team had an executive closer, an assistant manager, and each team had what we call the executive team that had privileges that the other salespeople didn't have. In other words, if you were on an executive team, you could do things, set your own schedule, not attend certain meetings. I mean, the executive team had privileges that they earned by production, and you could fall on and off the executive team. That worked out real well. Do you have anything like that working at Germain?
We do, and I totally subscribe to that. And especially as this, new business and new post-COVID type world that we're living in, for us, Black Friday was always just a huge sales event. And we were going to have 60, 70 people in a small, tiny room going crazy, getting Red Bull, candy, coffee, espresso, going, full throttle, and just getting everybody all jacked up at 7 a.m. or 6:30 in the morning. And this year we're going to do a virtual, like this, we're going to do a virtual kickoff at 7 a.m. And then we're going to have a split shift, because what would happen is everybody would come up that sugar high at about 6 o'clock, and we got 50 cars out, and then they start dragging, and all of a sudden wave 2 comes in, and they're doing it, but by midnight, it's you're wiped out, and then you tell them, okay, I'll see you in a few hours. We're going to do it again tomorrow on Saturday, and we're just pushing them full, to the wall.
Sounds like a zoo,
right? It's I'll tell you, it's an adrenaline rush, a lot of fun. But the people that sell over 18 cars, they don't. That's the one day that we did it, but we're not making them mandatory to be here early or late that day. But other than that day, if you sell 18 cars a month on a 90-day average, then you can set your own schedule. We find that the ones that do sell that many cars typically don't, but they can. But they do leave at 5 o'clock, and 4 or 5 of our top performers are on that program.
That's the executive team that I was talking about.
Executive team. They leave at 5 o'clock. They don't work Sundays. Most of them are on the service drive team. They work service drives. They work their existing business. They're self-sufficient. They set appointments. And I'm not going to micromanage those guys, because they come to work.
That has been my theory for so many years. That works out so, and you're one of the dealers that actually puts it into practice. That's amazing. Now, did you remember the King of Cards?
Of course.
The Chopper. I consulted that delership.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Rich Hackman.
I was going to say Rich Ackman hired me. Yeah, Rich Ackman and I were working together. The Chopper is a frustrated rapper. He really, we were pulling the strings. We were selling 600 cars a month, Dodges, on a 2-acre lot outside of Nevada, outside of Las Vegas. It was crazy. I mean, and we were doing those infomercials, and they were absolutely crazy because they were saying things you could not. You couldn't even say those things on TV anywhere else. I mean, you'd be censored. But but they would fill up wash tubs full of Red Bull, and those infomercials with the Chopper were filmed at 2:00 in the morning. I mean, they would spray the black asphalt with a garden hose and make it wet so it shined and glistened. And here's the Chopper standing on the microphone. People are pulling cars up to him, and he's saying some pretty. They had the Blue Genie, which was a guy named Singh. I can't even tell you some of the commercials they did. They were so over the top.
But that's proof positive that emotion sells cars, because there was nothing logical about that.
The Blue Genie was a star. He wore blue grease paint and a turban, and
I remember.
I love show business sales. I've always said, we talk about nobody merchandises their dealership anymore. We got people say big sale. Well, where's the big sale? You get there, it doesn't even feel like a big sale. It's not. There's no table toppers. There's nothing that looks like a big sale.
Balloons. I just had that conversation.
I was with Lynn Hickey at Lynn Hickey Dodge in the 90s when he set the world record. Now, the world record is 2,827 cars a month at retail. Lynn Hickey did that in June of '94. I was there. I was working with those guys. It was amazing. 7 ways in the dealership, 1 way out, and 1 way out was a guard with a gate, and he was actually a manager that took the last tee up.
It's like CarMax. You know what your traffic count is in a place like that.
That was engineered by Wade Hickey, Lynn Hickey's son. Wade is a genius. Wade is phenomenal. And you look at that dealership, they even had a full-time balloon manager with a demo. 27 acres of balloons. I mean, he invented the idea of putting balloons on cars. That's what spurred me to say that to you.
I didn't know.
Lynn Hickey, his theme was a sale every day. And that sale they had in 1994 when they set the Guinness Book of Records, Lynn Hickey and Evel Knievel were in a Mark IV conversion van hanging from a crane 300 feet above the dealership. And if you were there, Lynn Hickey drank Jack Daniels and Evel Knievel drank Coors, and they were sending cases of that. they blew up a car with a bazooka. I mean, you talk about show business. Lynn Hickey and Evel Knievel, drunk as skunks, allegedly drunk, hanging out of that van, shooting a bazooka, blowing up a Ford.
What city was this in?
Oklahoma City.
See, that's the nostalgia that has left this business.
I'm gonna slap you across the face. You ready?
Hit me.
Lynn Hickey set the Guinness Book of World Records. He did sell those cars that 1 month, but he was selling 1,200 cars every month. Had that 2,800 unit month that set the Guinness Book of World Records. AutoNation bought that store, one of their first stores, and never sold more than 100 units again. And closed the point.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, a company actually bought it. Cross-continent retailers bought it, and then AutoNation bought cross-continent retailers. And I think
it just goes to show you that there's retailers like that all over the place, and when you lose the emotional aspect of it and you go to just transactional, and that's why this industry can't ever go transactional, and that's why there's got to be some emotion in it, Because when you go transactional, you turn it to just a commodity, and there's no urgency. There's no, well, I think everybody on this call knows that logic doesn't sell cars, emotion does.
And CSI is overrated. Lynn Hickey proved that. First time I was in a cab going to Lynn Hickey Dodge. The cab driver's making conversation. He said, "Well, where are you going, sir?" I said, "I'm going to work with Lynn Hickey Dodge." He turned around, "Those people crooked." I said, "What do you mean they're crooked?" He said, "Oh, I know a little old lady had to stand on the toilet and call 911 to get out of there." I said, "Really?" He said, "Oh, those people are just abusive. They're bad." I said, "Really?" He said, "I bought 5 cars there. I know."
So let me ask you a question. Yeah. So with the Carvanas and all this stuff, where do you see the business in 5 years?
I see the business going to more transactional, not because we want it, but because the vendors want it. There's a lot of vendor double cross out there today. A lot of vendors are double crossing their loyal customers, and recently one of them was caught shoveling cars over to Carvana that were hitting one of the dealers' cars on their website. So there's a lot of double cross coming from vendors that were previously loyal partners. I see that people are never going to make warehouses out of the dealerships. There's still going to be a people-driven business. We're going to have to learn to do it. And I coined that phrase about a year ago, concierge sales, and it's gotten around the industry. Everybody's talking now about concierge sale. I take 100% credit for creating that word concept, concierge, and it's getting around the industry. And I can see that coming, honestly, Brian, but I got to tell you, what you're doing is phenomenal. Absolutely. 500 units a month in Naples, Florida. Who would have thought? And I'm telling you, there's 1,000 unit capability there.
I agree.
Don't believe for a minute you're doing the best job you can possibly do, because the minute you start believing that 500 is the best job you can do, you're getting all you're going to get. We're not
going to be happy with 500 this month.
You can reach harder, higher, farther. You can stretch. There's more. You can live a better life. And when I motivate salespeople, I always talk about the quality of your life because you work here. I never talk about the money.
The money just flows with it.
Money's for hookers and pawnbrokers. What do you want? Why are you working here? Why are you working these hours? Why are you working so hard? And if our top salesman made this much money, why aren't you making that much money?
And we want them to take 2 days off a week. We don't want them to burn themselves out bell to bell like we had to.
No.
I want them to work smart and use the technology and leave when they're supposed to leave. But when they come, they set foot on the field, they're going to give it 110%.
I was on the B team. Dealerships open. You be here. That was it.
I know it well.
I've been selling cars since 1976. I sold Nissans when they were Datsuns.
I think some days I'm still on that B team.
Well, you gotta be. I wrote that article, 20 things a general manager needs to do every week. And when I wrote that article, 20 things a general manager needs to do every week, it's the most read article in the history of that magazine. They're still getting hits on it every day online. This has been incredible. What other things would we tell that? Oh, by the way, Kilway and Hardy are on the sidebar making comments.
I'm sure they are as good as anybody we break each other's balls all day long. Kilway's talking about Facebook. He was trying to throw me a lob because I didn't know exactly what he was doing, but I'll give part of it, Jared, is because I didn't really want to get into a lot of detail for proprietary reasons. Give away your secret sauce.
But don't give away all your secret sauce.
He does take a lot of the data on these CSV files. He uploads them into a custom audience, and he'll do specialized targeted campaigns. But everything with him is highly targeted. There's no carpet bombing and just crop dusting. Everything has a purpose. We track the click-through rates and all that stuff. And if it's not working, to your point earlier, we stop doing it. And in order to commit to the things that we're going to do, so we do what we say we're going to do, we have to also decide what we're not going to do and be okay with it.
Fantastic. Well, listen, big guy, this has been an incredible, incredible experience for me. I'm so glad we had a chance to visit. And Naples, Florida. We're talking.
I'm just glad you had me on. I've been a huge fan for decades. So this is really cool for me.
I got to tell you, I get a kick out of it, the war stories. And now I see the new generation of trainers, and there's so many trainers out there. There's just some really good trainers in the market, like you mentioned, Quantum, some of those people. But there are a lot of frauds out there that run around with Facebook credentials that really never did anything and don't know anything, trying to teach people how to run their dealerships.
Right.
I'm really embarrassed.
No, they just got to be able to identify, and they got to vet the ones and make sure that their values are aligned. And it's one of the reasons why I went with Quantum is it was hard to find, because I guess that training doesn't really exist.
I have a saying, don't try to tell me how to do my job if you can't do my job.
Right.
And, so many of the trainers out there, I come from a top management background. I mean, so many of them have never been a manager out there trying to teach management.
Or teach change.
Oh, they can't do it.
Right.
Well, listen, big guy, thank you so much. This has been exceptional. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate you having me on.
Hang on a second. I'll be